All right. Hello, everybody. Awesome. Thank you all for coming today to our Career Development Network. We are talking about making a career pivot with our incredible panelists. I will introduce them in just a second, but wanted to run through just some introductory slides before we do. So my name is Pearl Sullivan. I lead community engagement here at the North Carolina Biotechnology Center. I am working on the Career Development Network with Susan Langford, who's in the back and leads this event. But very excited to have you all here today. Some quick notes before we get started is, first, this is a hybrid event. The great thing about that means that you all will be getting a recording of this session afterwards, should you want to refer back to it, as well as all of our other sessions. That does mean that because we have folks online, we do ask that you wait for a mic to get to you before you ask any questions. Otherwise, the folks online don't hear anything. So we will be running around with mics when it is time for Q&A, and I've asked our panelists to remember to wait for you to get a mic before you ask your question, but just as a note for that. So run through my quick slides. First, as of this morning, NCBiotech has launched our new careers and training site. So this is on the NCBiotech website. It's super easy to find, and it's really your one-stop shop for learning about jobs in the life sciences, training opportunities, events and networking opportunities. We're really excited about this as kind of being a hub for any information that you might want about the life sciences, whether you're already in the industry or considering entering it. Additionally, we have the Career Center. So the NCBiotech Career Center is where many of our life sciences companies post jobs and opportunities. It's a great resource for finding those options and looking at what opportunities are out there. Finally, we have our NCBiotech company directory. So you'll hear from people who are part of many of our different life sciences companies today. There are over 840 in the state of North Carolina. Company directory includes all of them. So you can go and learn more about the company. For many of our bigger companies like Merck and Amgen, who are represented here today, as well as Körber Pharma, we have a direct link to their career pages. So you can go and see exactly what they're hiring for, and it immediately links you to the site that you're looking at in the region of North Carolina. Our upcoming Career Development Network sessions, if this is your first time here, welcome. These are monthly, so they happen on the third Thursday of every month. Our next few these invites will be coming out soon, but on June 19th, we have Developing Your Personal Marketing Plan. We'll have a panel about internships in July, and then we'll talk about apprenticeships in August, and then I have Jake here. We'll be doing Boots to Biotech in September. These will all be coming out on our LinkedIn as well as through email if you're signed up for our email list, but just wanted to put them on your radar. If you're here for the Career Development Network, you are already participating in an intellectual exchange group. Thank you so much. The intellectual exchange groups are something NCBiotech offers really across the board, women in bio all the way to biomanufacturing and process development. Whatever you're interested in, there's probably a group for you. You can find out details on NCBiotech's website. Lots of opportunities. Career Development Network is one of our intellectual exchange groups, as is Triangle Biotech Tuesdays, which is another networking opportunity. If you want to join our LinkedIn community where we have jobs, training opportunities, career resources, etc., you can scan this QR code or look us up on, it's the NC Life Sciences Career Community on LinkedIn. We have over 2,000 members who are either aspiring or current life sciences professionals, so a great networking opportunity as well. I'm almost done, I promise. Finally, we have our newsletter. If you are on our newsletter, you're going to get it at 2 o'clock today. It is scheduled to send. It has job opportunities. I spend time every other week pulling jobs for folks that are looking for roles. We also talk about news, such as the $700 million investment that was announced earlier this week by Genentech, creating over 400 jobs in Holly Springs, resources, success stories, and events like this one. Other upcoming events, I'm not going to go through all of these, but I will flag Women in Bio, which is one of our intellectual exchange groups, is having an event, I believe, here at NCBiotech on May 29th. Aditi can correct me, though, to polish your resume and power up your negotiation skills. We also have that next Triangle Biotech Tuesday, which is a networking event. On June 10th, that will be hosted at Scientific Collaboration. And then, as I said, our next Career Development Network is on June 16th on your personal marketing plan. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into introducing our panelists. They're going to introduce themselves, tell you about their background, but I do want to take a quick second and introduce Melissa Coloton. So Melissa, our wonderful moderator today, is a strategic advisor to high performers in businesses with a background spanning over 15 years in corporate leadership and commercial strategy. She's led the growth of billion-dollar business units, advised executives, and successfully built multiple six-figure ventures. Today, through her proprietary Honor You method, Melissa leads workshops, delivers keynotes, hosts group coaching, and privately advises leaders navigating high-stakes decisions, career pivots, and personal transformations, helping them stay aligned, successful, and fulfilled. She holds a bachelor's in athletic training and a master's of education in adult education and multiple coaching certifications, blending business strategy and personal clarity. Turn it over to you.
Very good, thank you. And I'm not going to talk much because the next thing we're going to do is quickly just jump into introducing everybody on the panel. So if you guys just want to go one by one, introduce yourselves. And I think the second part of that is, what do you do now and what was your path to it?
Okay, I'll start. So my name is Aaron Firebaugh, and I was a high school chemistry teacher and assistant principal for 19 years. I was in that field for a while, got my master's and was in administration, was working in the central office when a lot of budget cuts happened. So I found myself back in the classroom teaching, which I loved. But then COVID happened and it changed a lot of things. So I started looking mainly for a job that I could work from home. That's what I really desired. And I had a friend who I met at an acquaintance, I guess I should say, who's now become a great friend, who I met at our daughter's gymnastics, who was like, "Have you heard of clinical research?" And I was like, "No." So, from there, he put me in touch with people. I had my first interview. Before then, they were like, "Do you know what a CRO is?" And I was like, "No." So I started like nothing. That's where I started. So I did not get that job my first interview, shockingly enough. But anyway, that led me to just talking to people, networking. I took the Durham Tech program, the Clinical Trial Research Associate program, not for an associate's degree, but they have like a core competency program. Super amazing, can't more highly recommend. Just the amount of stuff you learn, the amount of stuff you learn that's practical in the real world or in my job was amazing. So through several interviews and different things, I landed a job at Merck. Pharmaceuticals in the clinical trial world. So the job description says CTC, Clinical Trial Coordinator, but really I'm part of an ETRA program, which is a rotational program. So I've actually rotated through CTC, data management, and also kind of study management, project management type thing. So I'm finishing up that program now. I'm kind of looking for my next role inside of Merck, but that's kind of my journey.
That's awesome. And if you've never been in clinical trials, I'm sure all those acronyms made your head spin. So trust me when I say it gets better. So you get it. Go ahead, Felicia.
Hi, I'm Felicia Benefield. My title is Senior Associate Human Resources at Amgen, North Carolina. My role is twofold, and I'm going to put them into large buckets. The first being developing the culture of the site. We are building the facilities right now. We have recently constructed a huge manufacturing facility in Holly Springs. We are also expanding that facility while we build a second one. So the build of the culture of the site is critical at this moment. And so that's bucket one. Bucket two, developing career development and talent pipelines, including supporting our buddies over there at MOVE, our Boots to Biotech program, our rotational program, we've got one too, and a number of other interns, other career and talent development. Now, Melissa, you had asked a question about how we got here. Is this the time to answer that?
Yeah, what do you do now and what was your path to where you are right now?
Okay, well, I've covered what I'm doing. What was my path? I actually had I also had a career pivot. All going up until about 6 years ago, I was in marketing communications in one form or another. And at around 6 years ago, moving back from Belgium, I said, I don't actually want to be in marketing communications. I want to be closer to people. I'm already hearing about people's life stories, and they're already confiding in me about how much they hate the other people that they're working with. I would like to do this. I would like to make money receiving this information. And that's what I did. There is a very long story that I will not share with you at this moment in the interest of time, but you are welcome to sit with me afterwards and network, and I will tell you exactly what happened. So yeah, how did I get here? I got here through networking, commitment, and identifying my transferable skills.
Love that, yeah. Aditi?
Is this mic on? Okay, yeah. Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Dr. Aditi Korlimarla, and I've had a long career journey with quite a few pivots actually. So after I completed my medical schooling, I pursued a residency in clinical cardiology in Mumbai. And then I moved to the US for personal reasons. I got married and I came here and I was a bit lost. And that is when I was volunteering at a number of clinics, doing patient care, also at Duke University's Cancer Center. And that is where I chanced upon a postdoctoral research fellowship in rare disease. And that was the first time that I got a chance to work in clinical trials and research. My research was focused in neurology, rare disease, pediatrics. That was really the time that I realized there's a whole new world out there that none of us are taught about in med school, or even in our, like, I don't know, bachelors of science. And I liked that world especially because it was a perfect amalgamation where I could put to use medical knowledge and research innovations. Right after that, I was offered a faculty position at Duke University's Center of Excellence for Rare Disease. Currently, I'm a medical lead at the clinical development at a company called Ono Pharmaceutical. It's based in Boston. So I lead their, clinical trials and do some medical monitoring and a bit of everything. I enjoy the fact that I get to impact more patient lives coming out of academia. And yeah, that's where I stand right now. And I look forward to having this session with you wonderful people.
Awesome, thank you. I'm Gina Thompson. I'm the Senior Service Partner Manager at Körber Pharma. We do manufacturing execution software, printing, packaging, material handling, machinery, and it's another side of the biomanufacturing world that sometimes we don't talk about. How do we support our dear friends at Amgen and Merck, et cetera? So, at the company, I'm responsible for business development, expanding our horizons when it comes to partners. And I previously had spent about 20 years in healthcare IT. That's what I went to school for. That's what I got my degree in. And my internship turned into a full-time position. But after 20 years, I had done just about everything. Finance, revenue management, people leading, director of operations for the consultants. And so I said, I really want to do something different. And the industry here is so saturated. You heard Pearl talk about over 800 companies. There was a great opportunity for me to go ahead and take my leadership skills and bring that to a new area. And so that's exactly what I did. I've been at Körber for about just under 6 years. And while I'm here, I said, how am I going to learn about the pharmaceutical industry? We mentioned all the acronyms and they're so hard and I'm still learning. But I got heavily involved, especially with some of the local industry organizations, the ISPE local chapter, volunteering for that as a committee member, going ahead, and I'm actually the treasurer for the North Carolina Life Sciences Apprenticeship Consortium. And really spent some time networking to just immerse myself in what was out there, what was available. And because Körber does, all of this supporting work for the industry, you may not recognize the logo. And that was one of my passions, is to make sure locally, because we have an office in Apex, that people would recognize who we are and what we do. That's on the professional side. I'm in business development, and so I miss people leading. I used to lead a team of 30 consultants in the industry, and in business development, I don't have that opportunity. However, now that I'm involved in all of these local organizations, I do a lot of mentorship. We have interns going on right now, speak a lot to the students and the emerging leaders about how they can have a great path within the community that we have here, because it's so very strong.
Thank you guys so much. So we are going to talk next, and by the way, we do have some time for Q&A. I can't remember if we said that in the beginning. Okay, we did. So if you're building your questions, just keep them handy toward the end, and we'll cover those when we wrap up some of the panel questions. So the next thing we wanted to talk about is just what led you to decide to make the pivot. And I have on my list here, I'm supposed to start with Aaron, but I know that you scratched the surface a little bit about why you wanted to do that. Sounds like it was a COVID hit, you got to thinking about work from home, et cetera. But maybe you can deep dive into that a little bit more to talk through what made you say, I'm gonna make a major change, because yours was pretty major.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I did get a little ahead of myself there, but I think, yeah, with kind of the changing environment and teaching and stuff, through my role in administration in the county office, I kind of got to the top and saw what was there, and saw that's not really what I wanted to be. And I loved the kids and enjoyed being in the classroom, and that was really where my passion was. But as things changed with COVID, I started kind of looking. I really wanted to work from home, like I mentioned, and so I think when my friend John, who is a great friend, kind of told me about clinical research, I think kind of allowed me to combine my love of like science and the scientific method and like discovery and like problem solving, looking through things with like making a difference. Like, that's why I went into teaching, because I wanted to make an impact on these kids' lives, wanted them to leave my classroom, with that love of science. Maybe they didn't love chemistry, because chemistry is hard to love, but they had a love of science or interest in the world around them and stuff. So I think, clinical research for me really it would allow me to continue to do those two things that I was passionate about. I saw myself in teaching 15, 20 years, being that grumpy, burnout, old man teacher who the kids hated, and I did not want that for me, So I think that's what, in my mind, I was like, I need to change. Something needs to change, right? Either me or my outlook in teaching or career. So that's kind of what was the linchpin for me.
And I think there's probably a lot of people who currently work in an office versus at home. So I'm a little curious, not to put you on the spot, but what is the, I guess, attraction to working from home? And do you ever go in an office, or are you 100% work from home?
Right. So I think work from home is not from everyone, but but I love being with my family, and that's really kind of like, even 5 years ago, I was talking to some friends, like I would love a job that worked from home, which is not really existing in teaching, at least not that pays well. So, but my office is like downstairs in a room off of the main living area. I've got my wife and 3 kids and dog, like they're all there. Yes, I can close the door, but I love just being around them and being with them. So, the closest Merck office for clinical research is like Rahway, New Jersey. So I go there maybe once a year for like meetings and things, but I don't go in for anything else. So 100% remote, and I love it.
Got it. Excellent. So the same question to you, Aditi. What led you to decide to pivot in times that you have pivoted in your career?
Yeah, I think I had 2 major pivots in my journey, and it's quite unique. The first one, it was deeply personal, because I had to shift my perspective from direct patient care to coming to clinical research. And I'm not a bench scientist. I didn't have any papers in, so it was a new realm for me. But coming to the US, with an MD degree, you have to pursue another residency if you have to practice medicine here. And that is something that I did not intend to do. And I prioritized my family life. As Aaron was mentioning, I think there is a time when you have to pick, unfortunately, but we are all humans. And so I made that choice. I used to always say it's circumstantial, but I think subconsciously I did make that choice of deferring doing a residency and pursuing the clinical research world. And the second pivot happened when I moved from an academic research setting to industry. And that was driven by purpose. I kind of felt that, coming to Aaron's point again, that, you know, when you realize in your day-to-day work life that something's not right, you know, you feel out of place, wrong time, wrong place, all the time. And that is when I realized that I think I just need to shift my focus a little bit. I had the medical knowledge for, you know, different therapeutic areas. And I'm always passionate about patient care. Like, how can I impact more number of families and patients? And with, you know, being in rare diseases and being research focused in academia, I was impacting about 300 families or so, but I just wanted to expand my horizon and see where that takes me. And so that's really why I took the jump out of that, you know, academic setting. And just like Aaron, I did have, when I was doing my postdoc and faculty position at Duke, it was kind of hybrid. But then coming into industry, it's fully remote. I like the flexibility, frankly. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks guys for sharing your personal stories. And I think what sticks out to me is that you really honored what you desired in your life, regardless of the reason for it, right? You didn't judge it. You just said, you know, this isn't really working for me. So I'm either going to make a change or I'm going to be I think you used the word grumpy, grumpy teacher, and nobody wants that. So, and it was very personal to you with your families and such too, and then patient care and being close and having high impact. So I like that because it's really you know, a picture of honoring themselves regardless of the reason. So if, you know, you're sitting here thinking about a pivot and it's because you're like, yeah, with what you got going on, it doesn't matter the reason, right? You just have to listen to that and check it out.
Yeah, and I do like to chime in that while the transition happens, you know, when you're trying to get into that transition, it's not comfortable. It's not. I mean, I did judge myself. I did have low confidence. So it's a bit of work on yourself and some patience and being graceful to yourself, I think. One telltale sign is that you're not happy at the end of the day. Like doing meaningful work doesn't make you happy. So you have to, you know, pack your bags and move on to the next journey. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I personally, I'm not going to talk too much about it because it's not about me, it's about them. But I've pivoted several times in my career. I went athletic training degree, and then I was in staffing and recruiting, and then I worked at a winery, and then I finally found myself to clinical research and have been in it for about 15 years. And now I do my own business, which, talk about uncomfortable. You know, that is wildly uncomfortable. So you do have to face a lot of discomfort, but I think the other side of the bridge is very worth it. So yeah, thank you guys for sharing that. Gina and Felicia, the next question's for you. On the employer side, how do you look at candidates who have pivoted? And there's a second piece to that, so I can hold that, or you can, if you'll remember it. How can they speak to their experience to be a competitive candidate? So how do you look at candidates who have pivoted, and how can they speak to their experiences to be a competitive candidate? So.
So one of the things to remember is the goal of the employer is to match your past experiences with their business needs, the current business needs and their future business needs. And so the way you can do that is explain the why. Why are you looking to change? Why is it important for you to get into a new position or a different industry or a career? And then also you can talk to that about your wins. What have you done? What are those transferable skills that can come over that you'll be able to apply to this particular role that you're interested? So the why and the win is very important. And you should tell the story. Tell the story of how you're going to bridge the gap. If I don't have this here and I need to have it here, here's what my plan is. I plan to, for example, for myself, I didn't know a lot about the industry. And so I told myself I would get involved in one of the local chapters and just immerse myself in, an industry chapter. And that's where I started learning the acronyms, the companies, the information. And so you want to be able to tell that story of how you're going to bridge the gap and how you're agile. How can you go ahead and do that quickly? And so telling that story is extremely important, and that will help connect for the employer what you've done in the past and what you're bringing to the table today.
I love that, Gina. Those are all excellent tips. I love that. I'd like to add to that, you mentioned transferable skills. We often focus on the hard skills, the things like a certain training that you need to get to, or a certain degree, certain certification. And without a doubt, if you are interested in a new industry, a new area, and there are the opportunities to gain those certifications, such as biowork, that does help you. For instance, in our newly launched apprenticeship program, run over there by Justine Watson and Trish Levering, we have brought in 12 individuals who lacked biotech experience, a great deal of industry experience, but what they had were the other transferable skills, the soft skills, such as grit, determination, care, learning agility. You can demonstrate these through either, bridging that gap, talking about how you intend to step into this role. You can also show that in the interview process. You can show that in networking. You can show that through talking about everything that you have overcome to get to this place. Talk about your why. I love that, Gina. Your why makes such a big difference. It can mean the difference between someone who has the learning agility, the grit, the determination, the care, and someone who has the degree, but none of those other skills. A great hiring manager identifies these different skills and will pick the person who will be the best fit for their team. And that's usually the one who's willing to learn, who's willing to care about their others, and who has a very clear drive.
Sometimes the employer doesn't have the luxury to go ahead and focus on some of those things. Sometimes they have an immediate need and you have to check all the boxes, and that's where we are. But that's probably 20% of the time. 80% of the time is, and I would always say this when I would interview people, I want to know how they're going to interact with their team members, with their leaders. Are they going to be engaged? There's one thing of, coming to work, clocking in, doing what you need to do, and then checking out. There's another thing to be engaged, helping deliver the culture in the company, helping to go ahead and help on board the new resources, right? You can get the on-the-job training. You can get all of the skills, the hard skills to do the job, but like Felicia said, to be able to interact with others and show the desire and the ability to go ahead and, kind of meld into the group and also stand out at the same time is pretty important.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. One of the things that stands out to something, I think almost every single one of you either said the word or you alluded to it, was the networking component as well. And I know a lot of people kind of go, "Ugh, networking," but if you don't want to go to a big event like this and be amongst a bunch of people because that's not comfortable for you, you can do exactly what Aaron did. And he just spoke to people he knew. He didn't, go put himself in a big group of 400 people where he had to be like, I'm a teacher, but I think I want to do, and so you can do it more personally, and it makes it a lot more comfortable. And I always encourage people to do that when I talk to them, because it is something that makes everybody uncomfortable with the word, but the word doesn't need to mean you go get a group of people and you want to crawl in a hole. And it can just simply mean, who do I know that I can talk to about what I'm thinking about doing and get their advice? Because that's the other thing, is advice giving in this environment, everybody loves doing it. And almost every single person I've ever talked to in this industry came from random stuff, teaching. I had a couple of friends who went to school for theater. So, it seems like a bit of a boiling pot for individuals. And when there's needed for like scientific expertise and things like that, you might have to do more schooling. But at the same time, it's an environment that a lot of people are in that don't have backgrounds necessarily in clinical research. So Anyway, that was great. Thank you guys for sharing that. I think that's super helpful for now you know what the hiring managers might be looking for and what they want to hear. And our last question is, what advice do you have for folks considering a career pivot? And this is for all of you. So we can start with Aaron.
Sure.
Do you want to not go next?
No, I was just trying to like filter what
Pass.
prioritize and no. So one of my pieces of advice is networking, but maybe a non-traditional way of looking at networking is not just networking here, which is great, meeting people, but there are lots of people in your everyday life that are in clinical research you have no idea about. In fact, I was actually on a panel here several months ago, and Wendy, who was sitting beside me in the panel, I actually sat next to her at our son's like summer championship baseball game. And for 2 hours, I sat beside her and had no idea that she was in clinical research. Then we're on the panel together like, wait a minute, weren't you with the Clovers? And crazy. So part of my story was like when I started looking for clinical research, I networked, I let my friends know, I let my pastor know, and then turned out my great friend, his college roommate is like a VP at PPD. So then like I got on the phone with this guy at PPD who talked to me for like hours and put me in contact with someone else. And I think most people in clinical research are willing to talk and help if that connection is kind of like made. Like reaching out to people cold on LinkedIn and saying, hey, I need some help, probably not. But like the people that you're engaged with every day in your community, and if you're not engaged in your community, I encourage you to be. But whether it's church or where you're volunteering or sports team, just like let it be known, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Lots of people know lots of people, and those people are willing to help if those right connections are made. The second kind of part of that is, part of my story is I went to the NC Works. It's kind of a place that helps look at, help you find jobs and things. And they looked at my resume, which was a teacher resume, which was nice and pretty and things popped and pictures and images. And they're like, most places a computer looks at your resume and computers can't see pictures. And when they see lines, they stop and they do all these things. You need to have one you submit online that a computer can read. The other thing is, I know for Merck, our last kind of entry-level emerging talent, there was a lot of applications submitted, like thousands. And I think in our environment that happens as well. So what makes sure to stand out at Merck? There is an internal employee reference program where I can send you a link through me where you can get, and I'm not guaranteeing that gets you the job or an interview, but it's gonna get your resume looked at. And I'm sure most companies, I've talked to other people that have that similar type thing. So find people you know that work at the company you wanna go for, you're applying for, and try to apply through those internal references instead of just sending out cold resumes. Because if there's 6,000, they can't look at all 6,000. So they gotta find a way to go through those. I think the computer helps, but I think if you have an internal reference, that's gonna help you make sure your resume is at least seen. So network, not just here with strangers, but network through your community that you already have that exists, and just let it be known, hey, this is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that advice. And actually applying can be so exhausting because it just goes into a black hole sometimes, which is so disappointing. So if you're talking to people and especially people who want to help you and are being kind enough to introduce you to VPs at PPD, I mean, that's really great. So it's a lot more energy there than applying and feeling like you're just going nowhere. Yeah. So great. Felicia?
Don't give up. Those who are going through a career pivot, I'm sure it feels so exhausting. The number of applications that you're putting in, the number of times that you're reformatting your resume, it's draining. You're not alone. We're all going through it. And I just want you to know that there is an opportunity for you to step into the space that you want to be in. You keep going and you do a few things. I love the suggestions that you just made. I'd say all of those things. And I would add to that, there are times when you are formatting your resume and you're ensuring that all of your skills are adequately and appropriately listed in your resume, including any stats or any data that can verify what you have done. Any certifications that you have taken are listed in there. And there are times when you are only allowed to upload one file. And sometimes that's exhausting because you have so much to say. You are not most of the time you are not required to write cover letters. But if you want to have the ability to have more information about you and your story shared with a future potential employer, write the cover letter anyway, save your resume and your cover letter as one file, upload the whole thing. It can help the applicant tracking system pick up on more keywords that are directly related to your work. That's the number one tip I've got for you right now. Go ahead.
Perfect. Aditi?
Yeah, I think what he said, what she said. Yeah, so I think the key message I think that you're hearing from all of us is networking. So I co-chair Women in Bio committee called Mentorship, Advice, and Peer Support. It's called MAPS committee. And I've been with Women in Bio for 5 or 6 years now as a leader of local groups, peer groups. My advice to networking is don't do it just because you want to land your next job. Do it because you want to stay connected to like-minded people. You want to build your tribe. Think about your future. Don't think about it as a next step for a next job. So I was attending a webinar at Duke University for students, that was the first year of my learning about industry. And it said that you need to have at least 500 plus connections on LinkedIn. I had about 100 when I started this journey. And so I was like, okay, click, 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 connect, 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 you know. And the second tip that I give students these days is, pick 5 companies where you would love to work at. Pick at least 2 or 3 individuals from that company for roles that you would apply to and roles that you would find mentors at. Just cold call them. Send them a message on LinkedIn, email them saying that, hey, do you have 10 or 15 minutes to, chat on Zoom? You don't have to do in person anymore. And trust me, mentors are looking for mentees because they want to give back. I mean, they've reached a position where they've gained so much knowledge and they want to speak. They want to speak to people who don't know much. And so start building that network from early on, even before you decide to have a pivot. It doesn't hurt, I would say. So that's about networking. The second point is education. And it need not be related to your specific domain. I would say attend webinars, for developing soft skills, as rightly put, leadership qualities, communication skills. Like, how many of us are introverts out here? I'm sure half of you will raise your hands if I ask that question.
They won't even raise their hands.
They won't, that's correct. Yeah, and so I think building those soft skills, like do a SWOT analysis and recognize your weaknesses and work on some of those. I mean, we all have weaknesses and that's fine, but building that portfolio, building that personal branding, I think it just goes a long way. It's something that you need to do even if you've not considered yourself lucky or you don't want to pivot, or it doesn't matter. I think all of us, especially with so much AI going on and with the fear that we may be replaced, I think this little bit of homework is okay to do. So those are, I think, my top 2 ideas to help people. Other than that, I would just say that non-linear career pathways are like the new norm. I don't think that, just to give my example, growing up and then doing med school, it was like, oh yeah, do a residency, then do patient care. No, I mean, there are like at least 30 or 40 jobs that only medical people can do in industry. I didn't learn that up until I was self-taught and I networked and I spoke to people. And so I think just keeping that in mind and being graceful to yourselves that there's no set path, there's nothing set in stone. You make your own career pathway. So don't be afraid to take that leap. And if you're afraid, talk to people who've taken the leap and get real world experiences and evidence that it can be done and just go for it. I mean, there's nothing absolutely wrong when you pivot. And we've spoken to, human resources folks here up on the panel. It's welcomed if you have like multiple disciplines added to your list of soft skills that you can then refer to as transferable skills and move on to your next career opportunity.
Yeah, thanks guys for that. And I wanted to summarize a little bit of two of those. Felicia was very tactical, and I thought that was some of the things you mentioned were very tactical, and I think that's really helpful. And from a person who's been in the hiring management position for a good while now, one of the things that has massively changed as well is virtual interviews versus in-person interviews. And I hate to say it, but there has been some really brutal virtual interviews that I have had, like people looking like they were in a closet or very, very dark environment. And so it's no different than the advice, don't wear really heavy perfume when you go in person because that's all people will think about. It's the same with virtual. Make sure you have a really good setup and do what it takes to do that. Borrow, a webcam if you don't have a good webcam. Borrow some from somebody, go to the library, do things that will help support you in the virtual and learn what that looks like and what good looks like, because it is totally different than in person. And then Aditi, I love your reference to networking. Don't go with this headspace of, let me just go do this for me. Yes, you need to be able to talk about and articulate what it is you want to do, and that will be helpful because that'll open doors. People will want to help you. But I think networking has a little bit of a fracture in it these days, and that's part of the reason why nobody likes to do it, because then everybody's selling you something. And so go with the idea of who can I help in this room? Simon Sinek talks about that a lot. If you've ever wanted to look up his version of networking, is when you go and you talk to people, be talking to them, be like, who can I introduce them to? Who can I, tell them to go talk to, or what company can I mention that they can maybe go look at that they would be a good fit for? And you'll be mind blown at how nice that is for people and how much they'll see you as like the helper, and they'll think about you when things come up. So networking can be a lot more than just shaking hands and begging for something different to happen in your life. It can be a lot more about just trying to help other people. It's monumental, and it makes you feel good. And again, it gives you more energy to do it. So thank you both for those. And last but certainly not least, Gina.
I don't remember when the last time you guys took a test, but there's usually radio buttons, A, B, C, all of the above, right? Of all of this feedback that has been given to you, take heed to it. And I would say do it boldly. And by boldly, I don't mean going crazy and we'll find you on the internet and social media with kind of terrible videos, but be bold and confident in what you're doing. We're all in the industry in different roles, but we all interact with each other through one organization or another. And we're constantly, it's not just about getting the employee in place, it's about building the pipeline of workforce for our local industry. And so we all support each other very much so in that realm. And your paths are going to cross with maybe even the person you're sitting next to. You don't realize it now, but it may go ahead and come full circle for you at some point. I know for many of us it has. So, be confident and be bold and stand out in all of the actions that you have.
I really love that one. I think that kind of clicks into every single one, because you have to be bold to tell people what you're wanting to do, even if you feel like it might sound wild, going from teacher to something totally different. I actually had a guy go from working at NC State as the track coach, assistant track coach, track and field coach for 20 years. And he got into clinical research. So it absolutely can be done. If you're someone who's in clinical research, but you're wanting to pivot, I know, Gina, you mentioned going into business development, for example. And so there's other realms of your environment that might be interesting for you as well. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean you're not in clinical research and you want to get in clinical research, but it could mean you're in project management and you want to do regulatory or something like that. So you do have to still go through all these things that we talked about on this panel. So thank you guys so very much. I think we're good to open it up to questions. Perfect.
Pass this to the middle. Thank you very much.
So first of all, thank you all so much. If this has been one of the most impactful networking events I've attended, if only because I have a little bit of hope, right? And so I appreciate your encouraging words. So I currently work in higher ed administration, and so have worked as a program director, and have been working on networking and building my knowledge to be able to pivot and figure out what's next for me. And I want to lean into my science background and pivot towards oncology clinical research. I know my why, I know my transferable skills, I know my gaps. But here's the challenge. I have a job right now, currently, and I'm grateful for it in this period of time we're in. And I don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. And I feel like if I were to go on my LinkedIn profile or utilize LinkedIn in a way that I'm trying to engage in the direction I want to engage, it will be a giant red flag to any of my current colleagues that I'm affiliated with on LinkedIn. And so I'm wondering if you have any advice on how to navigate that when you're looking to make a pivot, but don't want to tip off your current employer and colleagues in the age where LinkedIn seems to be so important.
That is a great question. So what I would recommend is getting involved with some organizations locally that will kind of be a doorway into what you want to get into, and personally get involved in there. You don't have to come straight in and say, hey, I'm looking for a new job, right? Let them know, this is what I've been doing, and this is what I'm actually interested in. Can I support something with the organization? And folks will get to know you and hear your story, and it will be a little bit protected rather than, kind of blasting it out on LinkedIn. I would be very strategic about that.
Absolutely, be strategic. We know that if you were to say change your profile to open for work, that would, I would say do not do that. But you do have the opportunity to reach out to individuals, to message them directly, to attend local groups, and to consistently look for opportunities where you can get a face-to-face or a Zoom-to-Zoom, screen-to-screen, if you will.
Yeah, I think I agree with them. You need to be strategic, but there is a way to open to work on LinkedIn without the rest of the people knowing it.
Right,
Just
for
the recruiters can reach out to you. So do that. And I would say in-mail people, in-mail people who, you're looking to get into, the company that you're getting to get into, and talk to them about, how do you feel about this job? How do you see yourself 10 years from now? I know that I was giving the tip that, reach out to 5 companies that you would end up, but the way you reach out to them is give me a job. No, that's not the messaging. You have to basically read up their profile and say that, hey, you've done this. I'm interested in doing something like this. Can you help me figure this out? And so people tend to reach out. I would say just the in-messaging part, don't post anything. I think Felicia is suggesting not to do the open to work even for the recruiters, but I don't know. It's your life at the end of the time. I mean, who cares?
Truly, Aditi.
Yeah,
Yes, who cares?
I was, I think in my previous 2 decades, worried about what other people think, but I don't anymore. I mean, it doesn't matter. You have to go ahead. You have to take that leap, right? And if folks reach out to you from your workplace asking, hey, I suddenly see you liking life science posts, opposed to what you do, and say that, yeah, I'm interested in learning about that, the domain or something like that. Just come up with something. But I do say that don't disengage with LinkedIn, because at least for our generation, it's something that we use as a social networking platform for getting jobs. Ask AI, maybe ChatGPT for better platforms. There are some, but I don't have any knowledge about it.
So can I just ask a quick follow-up? So I submit a cover letter and a resume to a position. Are the hiring managers going to my LinkedIn profile? And if there is any kind of disconnect, is that an issue?
So are they going to your profile? If you've included it with your resume, they probably are. If you've made it to the part of the screening process where they are seeing your resume and your cover letter have made it to the hiring manager, they could very easily click on that link and see your profile. As long as you have that you are sharing the work that you've done. And in the resume, right, you are emphasizing the skills that you've learned along the way, that you've acquired. You're putting them into your resume, and if it should just track. So the position should be the same. It should be during the same time windows. The roles and the titles should be the same. But it's fair, it's completely fair to emphasize within each position the specific skills that you pulled out, that those two don't have to align if you have a teacher profile here and an oncology profile here.
Yeah, and there's specifically with LinkedIn, a lot of the recruiters do kind of word search type of things. So the more detail you can put around what Felicia just said, the better. But I would just say, don't let that stop you. LinkedIn's not the end all be all. I mean, Aaron got a job through just telling his network and his friends and his family and coming to things like this. And I think you've heard those stories. So don't feel like you're trapped in a cage just because you want to hide your LinkedIn situation. I think be you on LinkedIn. That's what I would say. And that's if there shouldn't be really a disconnect there. And hopefully there's not red flags, but just be you. And I wouldn't be aggressive with the green banner and all that stuff. But I think you can poke around there to find people and look at people and get the background on companies.
Yeah, and I do want to add, there are local groups here, like if you don't want to meet in such a big setting. For instance, Women in Bio that I volunteer at has a new cohort for transition maps. It's to help individuals move to industry. And so, look it up and see if you're interested, read it up, and register if you need to. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have. Go ahead.
Okay, is this on? Okay. My name is Melinda Young, and I am going to be a group leader for the Transition Map Women in Bio, which is one of the reasons why I'm here.
I know her.
Hello. A couple of things that I did whenever I got my latest job was, one, I was working, so I wanted to continue working where I was. So I did use the private button, and I slid the private button over. So I started getting calls and things like that. So all of that really worked for me. So hopefully it will work for you. Felicia, whenever you said that you combined the document between your resume and your cover letter, does the cover letter go first in order of that one document, or does it go last? Or does it matter?
It doesn't really matter, but I would put your resume first. Honestly,
Okay.
those are your skills.
Okay.
That's what most hiring managers are looking for first, but their story will shine through at the end.
Okay.
Thank you. So I had a meeting with a corporate recruiter earlier this week, and it wasn't for a specific role. It was just more of a sort of a networking connection. We were discussing sort of my qualifications and some career transitions I was looking to make, and how my skills might be transferable. And she looked at my resume and she said, "Looks like there's a lot of good things on here, a lot of things they'd be looking for." But the one thing she mentioned was my PhD might be like some roles they might be like, "Oh, that's a little bit overqualified for that." And I think one of my issues with applications has been you look at roles and there's very few that list like PhD as one of their levels of education. And from that, I sort of just get the sense that if you're a PhD, there's PhD roles out there, and then there's a whole bunch that are you're overqualified for. So I was wondering if you guys had any input on what specifically are the hangups with hiring PhDs, and if so, what are some of the ways through constructing my resume or through networking or through the interview process that I could help alleviate those concerns.
I can take that one because for the first 3 or 4 years that I moved to the US, I often got left out for the very same reason that you're overqualified for a job. And I would say what helped me was doing a little bit of my homework in understanding what domains really qualify for me, myself. And so I'm not sure if you've looked at roles like clinical scientist, medical affairs, medical writing, medical communications, clinical development. So these are some of the, key places where they require MDs and PhDs. So don't, unless you have passion for, say, clinops, clinical operations. I mean, there you need to have a bachelor's and a master's in science. Unless you have a passion to go work in that domain. I think there are well-established domains where they need PhD students and post-PhD employees. And so do a little bit of your homework to figure out which domains really accept candidates, and then figure out if those align with your value system and where you want to go. I think I learned it the hard way. It took me 4 years to figure out which jobs I need to click on. So it was hard, but just keep talking to people from various domains, learn about what they do in their day-to-day activities, see if that aligns with you, and then start applying to those particular jobs. I hope that helps.
We have 2 questions from our online audience that I'm going to ask really quickly. And just to note, as we are getting close to the end of our panel, many of our panelists are kind enough to stick around after. So if you do have a question, we can go there. But Chase, I'm doing online questions first. So first, from one of our online attendees, we have a question about, do our panelists have any advice for federal scientists who were recently affected by the reduction in force efforts and who are looking to pivot to biotech?
Work your network. You have made friends, you have made connections, reach out to them, seek the referral links. It's unfortunate what is happening, and you all out there have incredible skills and talent. Just continue to reach out to the people that, the connections that you have made while you were working in industry.
Thank you, Felicia. And then my second online, before we go to our last in person, is somebody said in their position, a career pivot would result in a lateral or decrease in pay. How would you rationalize a decrease in pay when current pay rates are not keeping up with inflation? Or how do you think about lateral moves and pivots?
If it's okay, I'd like to take this one. I just eyeballed all of them and they nodded, so I'll accept that as I'm gonna do it, whether you like it or not. No, the reason I wanted to take that one is because I recently left basically a senior vice president, one step down from being a chief commercial officer, and to go on my own. And so this was a pretty significant change in my income, and I was able to replace my income through my revenue, through my business, which is great, but obviously starting off, it didn't start day one as getting that every 2-week paycheck. And I think what I would say is, going back to what Aditi said, are you happy doing the higher level thing? And if the answer is no, that's okay. And I'm not telling anybody to burn their house down, because we all have responsibilities. We have children and families and spouses and things that we're responsible for, so you can't burn the house down. But I think what I would say is bridge and make a plan so that you can have that lateral or even taking a step back from your finances and think about, what does that look like for you? And I actually, shameless plug, I actually just had somebody on my podcast that talked about this. She was a high-level vice president in the banking industry, and she went out on her own. So she talks very specifically about the planning she did, the finance audits that she did on herself. She just went through the whole thing and made a plan. And you guys are all very brilliant people. I know that because you're here and you just are, And so you can figure this out, and it's no different than figuring out something else in your life. And I highly encourage, don't be afraid of it. It can be done. There might be sacrifices, 100%. I'll share very vulnerably and personally. I sold my house to do what I wanted to do, but guess what? I am so much happier. And I don't miss that house one bit. And I certainly don't miss the stress and the anxiety and all the things that came with the position that I was in that I just decided wasn't for me. So I would highly encourage you to really go back to what Aditi said very strongly about, are you happy, are you not happy? And if you're not, taking that lateral or even a lower position is perfectly fine. And it comes down to just being really confident in your own decisions and your own happiness and not worry about what everybody else thinks. And you may or may not have to make sacrifices, and that's okay because those things will come and go. But your happiness is, it's kind of everything. So,
Yeah, I agree. And I think pivots are no more a detour in your career journey. I think it speaks to your development and own personal growth. So even in the future, if you've pivoted and taken a lateral move or gone down one level or two levels, it really doesn't matter in the long run. So, yeah.
not at all. I have a really good friend. She was higher level sales, and she started wanting to be home more. And with sales, you travel a lot. And she decided to start taking a step back and do sort of inside sales, where people normally start as their sales career. And and nobody cares. She's still jamming out at a really high position. She's runs strategy at a pretty sizable CRO. And so as long as you can tell the story of your why, I think we talked a little bit about that today on today's panel too, is what's your why? And as long as you have the story put together and a strong conviction around it, it's completely fine, and hiring managers won't ding you. But if it's just, well, I went here and then I did that, and then I didn't like that, so then I went over here and I didn't like, but tell some meat to the story and the reasons why. And hers was just personal. It was she wanted to be with her family more. Nobody's going to ask any questions or judge that. And if they do, they're probably not somebody you want to work for anyways.
Can you all hear me? Yes. Okay. I'm Olufemi Hajumobi. I go by Femi. I just wanted to mention that two of the panelists kind of resonate with me, and I wanted to share a few things. Starting with Aditi. I'm a physician by background.
Can you hold the microphone? There you go.
I'm a physician by background, so I could relate. And I'm a pharmacoepidemiologist, so I'm interested in joining ISPE. I'm not aware ISPE has a chapter in North Carolina. So to my point, and what he said about being overqualified also resonates. So I'm a physician, a pharmacoepidemiologist with a PhD in public health, completing my postdoctoral fellowship at the FDA. I've been trying to get into the job market for like 2 years in the industry. So my very first question is the place of experience. How hiring managers tend to view experience, especially for those that do not have. I see people moving from one pharma company to the other easily because they've had that experience. But for those that are trying to break in, specifically for biotech, I think that's an issue. For me, and that's why I've kind of been intentional about my journey from finishing a PhD in public health, getting to work in real-world evidence, doing clinical trial data analysis at the FDA, and completing my postdoctoral fellowship at the FDA. But I think that not having that experience is an issue with trying to get even an interview or even a recruiter screening. So I don't know, from your point of view, the kind of advice you could give us. I've taken everything you've said, basically, and they are quite great, but from the hiring manager point of view, what can we job seekers, what else can we do? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question, Dr. Femi, and I totally understand your pain. I was in the same boat for 4 years, completely dejected, didn't know what to do. I was completely lost. Friends around me weren't on my journey, so they really didn't understand how to help me. And with your experience in patient care and then with your epidemiology background and clinical trial background, just keep at it. I would suggest that don't wait for LinkedIn recruiters to reach out to you. I think you have to do a lot of personal branding and reaching out to people in person. Go for coffees with local, biopharma, biotech, hiring managers and HR folks, just meet, network. You would have to break out of the LinkedIn recruiter expectation. That's what worked for me. And I totally agree with you. Being an MD and getting that first industry job is the toughest. It's people just don't want to listen to your story for some reason. And so it's just a matter of time. Keep at it. Don't give up. Apply to entry-level positions such as associate medical directors. They do not require much previous industry experience. A lot of companies would be okay with academic experience as well. And so focus on two things. You have to know the difference between CRO and biopharma biotech industry. Again, CRO is very open to people with giving, for entry-level positions. So if you're okay entering, being a medical monitor for a CRO, go for it. And it's a matter of 1 or 2 years. Stick around. If you don't like that, then you're no more entry level, right? Then you can start applying to medical director kind of positions. But don't give up. And I would say just start meeting people, and I can get in touch with you offline too.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. Let's give a massive round of applause to our panelists. Thank you all so much. So I know we had more questions. Luckily, we have just under an hour of networking. If you head out those doors that you entered, we have refreshments outside, and I believe most of our panelists are planning to stick around and network as well. But thank you all so much for coming, and we appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Start working this way. These were the stairs.